tried your best. Work real hard.
Hi, I'm JaNeka.
I'm Genice Chantel.
I'm Erica.
That would have been Ange, but she's not feeling well today, guys. So welcome to Becoming Her.
So with my son, I try to take the approach, even though I'm a nervous mom because I'm raising a boy alone, you know, I don't hide those things from my child. Like if he asks me a question, now I remember I did mess up when, you know, he was going through his little man stage. I messed up, but I had to make it safer to come to my child. Like my child, I don't have to beat on my child. I don't have to beat him. I don't have to pop him. Like once every 6 months, I'd be like, who you talking to? Like, and that's about it. But it was just like every time growing up, we went to our parents or something, it was either ass beating or go to your room or we're not going to talk about this. Yeah. And it's like, it fucked me up growing up. You know, I'm still learning, but I'm in my 30s, just learning really how to love myself. How, like, I don't even know the fundamentals of dating. I'm still learning that, but it's just like learning myself all over again because we didn't have that.
When you say that, it reminds me of a story I was telling y'all earlier about how, you know, my grandmother, when I'm talking to her about, you know, getting birth control, and she was so adamant that, you know, she wasn't getting me on birth control because birth control, I guess that was her condoning me having sex. But we know our children, we as children, young adults or whatever, teenagers, are going to have sex. So, you know, when you look at it back in the day, it's like, do as I say, not as I do. And, you know, because I said so, and, you know, projecting all of the adult fears on our children instead of educating them with the right, giving them the right tools and stuff. That's crazy when I think about that. Like, if my child can, and she did, then they did come to me and ask me about birth control. Absolutely, we're going to have the sex talk. We always get the sex talk. And I was very open with my children about me being raped and molested. So they knew. They knew, you know, I didn't give them details as to, you know, what happened, but they knew, you know, certain things about how safety issues and how I was paranoid about them being around, you know, people because of what happened to me. So, but I would never tell my child, you know, they can't be on birth control because I said so. You know, no, we're going to talk about sex. And if you want to be on birth control, if you're having sex or not, then that's what I'm doing. Because at that point, I wasn't having sex. I had sex because I had been raped. But I was considering having sex with my son's father at the time. We wasn't having sex yet. But he and I were talking about having sex. And I didn't want to get pregnant. Right. So I wanted to get on birth control prior to being a responsible teenager. Prior to... And she was adamant, like, no, you're not getting on no birth control. And that's just not right.
I found out.
And then get mad when you get pregnant.
And then get mad when you get pregnant. Like, what sense does that make? Like, my mother did not talk to me for like the first 3-4 months of my pregnancy. Mm-hmm. That made no sense to me at all.
I was literally the commercial. I'm sitting on the bed. I think I had my thumb in my mouth, and my grandma was like, you want to have a baby? You want to have a baby? How you can't even keep your room clean? Smack my hand out my face.
Yes,
I was literally the commercial. She was like, you can't even keep your room clean. I'm gonna get Section 8 because my sister told me I can get on welfare. Like I had a plan though. I literally had a plan. Right. And it worked.
I'm gonna tell you what fueled me. When I was pregnant with my oldest son, I was in my room crying my eyes out. And I can hear my mother on the phone talking to my grandmother about me being pregnant and how I thought, you know, it was just going to be easy. Like it's a doll baby that I can just throw to the side. Like I was so hurt, but it fueled me to prove her wrong.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It did something to me. It ignited something in me. I was so angry with her for saying that. Because hindsight, I didn't think that then, but now I'm thinking back, like, miss, you didn't even prepare me for anything.
So what would you expect?
What would you expect?
Mm-hmm.
I came on my cycle at 10, and just like you, she handed me a Kotex maxi pad. I'm gonna tell you, I didn't even know how to put it on. I put the tape side on.
That hurt.
That fucking hurt. I
didn't know. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But you mad that
now
I'm getting ready to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
She sat in the parking lot when we went to go take the pregnancy test. Back then, she used to smoke cigarette after cigarette. She didn't even walk in with me. I came out with my bag of stuff for my prenatal care. What they say? What they say? And I was like, my prenatal visit is such and such and such and such and such. I thought she was gonna pass out in the fucking parking lot.
Oh no. I told my grandmother by handing her a pamphlet. Like I went to find out, and you know, they give you all this information about being pregnant. And when I got home, what they say, and I was like,
man,
I found out by trying to get another abortion, and they said, no, Miss Smith, you can't have another abortion. Like I was pregnant, and I
not
used
another abortion.
as a teenager,
I had from the age of 12 up until I got pregnant with my son, I would use abortions as birth control, and because I didn't have my mom was an elder in the church. That's not the conversations you have with your children.
Did
when
she know you was
in
having
it.
abortions?
No, my dad knew when I was 12 and I slept with the musician. He was like 22. My dad knew about
at least whoop his ass.
That's a whole nother story.
Right,
That's a whole nother story. And I got pregnant several different other times. The last pregnancy I had got with Ethan which was Ethan. I had got into a car accident, and they said I had something called a threatened abortion. And I was like, "What is that? I'm here for a car accident." I thought I was bleeding internally. It was like, "No, you're pregnant." And I was like, "No, the hell I'm not." I was like 5.5 months, still having my cycle, still having all this stuff. No, I'm not. So what do I do? I go to the clinic to get another abortion. They say, "Miss Smith, you can't.
It's too far gone.
You can't. No, you can't. You've had too many. Like you can't. It's like you cannot have after a certain amount of time. Last time you can't keep having abortions."
Okay.
So then, because I was in the accident, I had to go to like emergency prenatal, whatever. Like I would have to have those extended fetal care. I would have to go to those visits. And they thought my son had spinal bifida. So I was like, you know, they was like, you have a choice for a therapeutic abortion because I don't know if you're going to be able to take care of a disabled child. I was like, oh shit, this is my way out. But it wasn't a way out because they was like, yeah, we thought it was spinal bifida, but it was like a blood clot is on his, like from your accident. Once it passed through, you know, you're going to labor. 2 months later, I went into labor. So, I mean, I'm glad my son is here now, but it wasn't
divine.
But it was, yeah, but it was like the process of like, oh, I'm pregnant. Let me go take care of it how I always take care of it. And it wasn't even, you know, it wasn't that anymore. It's like I was the daughter that dropped out of school. I didn't want to have a child.
He saved your life.
He literally saved my life. I didn't even have a high school diploma when I had my child.
Look at
like I didn't even have a high school diploma. And it was crazy because I was a child that worked jobs, go to the Windsor Inn, stay there after they closed about 3-4 o'clock in the morning with the bartenders and Mark and all of them and just chill out. I would go straight to MBNA, switch over to Verizon off the light rail, do the switch off and come home and do it over again, crash and do it over again. But I didn't learn how to protect myself or what to expect because number one, I was sleeping with grown ass men since I was 12. Number two, I couldn't have those conversations with our parents because back in the day, with the religion, like you eat church, you go to church, you know, you go to Bible class, you go to revival, like you really don't learn. So I was sniffing for something out there, and I know it was really nothing out there because I was a latchkey kid, I was a church kid, I was the youth convention kid, my life was in church, and I would meet these monsters in church. I would meet these monsters in church. I would meet them in church.
Where you're supposed to be safe.
Where you're supposed to be safe. Yeah, so like it's just now I'm in a stance where if my son asks me something, I get nervous. Like I'm nervous about a lot of stuff. Like we were talking early, you know, and I'm thinking like, shit, I was having sex at 12. The fuck, he 14. Like, what the hell? Like, he 15 now. Like, you know,
would have had information overload.
Yeah,
it's just, you know, so I'm like, yeah. And then he says father's child too. So I'm like, damn. Like, do I got 30 grandchildren somewhere? So it's like, it kind of brought me through a reality. Like, I have to be able to, like, you know, open up and talk. I know it makes me nervous, but I know that I had to learn sex and life through relationships. Like I heard you, you know, touch on rape. And I thought that it was always my fault because I used to remember the chat line was popping at the time. And you would call the chat line and then you yes, and then you would press the button to connect. And I'll never forget the guy name. I met him, caught a bus over there right by Bond Secure. He walked me to his house. 4 guys jumped out, but I had to take it because it was like, you know, you gotta fake it till you make it. Although you didn't want it to happen, it's like you gotta get through this. They walked me to the bus stop. I still remember what the hell I had on. I called my father. He picked me up. And I told my dad what happened. And my mom now, my mom realizes a lot of stuff now, and she's a really good mom. I watched her be a single mother while married for years. And the first thing she said to me, because I was an unruly child, I bet you won't call that chat line again. And she didn't realize until I got older.
That's what she said.
That's what she said. But like I said, when you know better, you do better. And that she learned herself and learned, like, there's a lot of things that, my mom has apologized about, because I was unruly. Like, I would fight my mom, and I don't condone that. But I was
do that as a parent. You have to apologize.
Yeah,
to your children,
I was a hard child.
What the problem is, I had to do that with my children. Like, me and my children had situations where they didn't know what was while relationship wasn't the way that it's supposed to be. And at the time, I'm the parent that felt like I was raised, do as I say, not as I do. And whatever I say is what's supposed to happen. And I had to apologize to my children. Like, I'm sorry, whatever I did that made you feel however you're feeling, I apologize. And, from that point on, we have been building and working on a better relationship. But like we say, when you know better, you do better. I did not know as a young parent.
Right.
But today, as a parent, an mature adult parent raising adult children, I'm definitely in the mood of doing better by them now.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I have apologized to my children as well. And I have even asked them, this was around about the time, because I wrote my father a letter probably about 5-6 years ago or so, explaining how he made me feel during my entire childhood. And he owned everything that I explained. So after I did that, I brought all my kids over. And I asked them if they had any gripes with me, anything that they wanted to say to me about their childhood, how they were raised. And they all just kind of looked at each other, and they was like, no. I apologized anyway, because I knew some of the ways that I didn't have any patience.
Did you ever have a one-on-one conversation, or was it?
I did not.
Mine was one-on-one.
It was not.
Me and my middle daughter, my oldest daughter, my middle child, had a really good conversation, very transparent. I was very open about why I was so mean to her, which is crazy. I definitely, I didn't like her because of her father. I didn't realize it. It was like, after I had to think about, why our relationship was so
right. That took courage.
Our relationship was like tumultuous, because like I didn't like her because she looked just like her father, and he was the love of my life. Like at that point, like I felt like we were supposed to be together. I had envisioned and played out our wedding in my head, and I thought that was going to be the man that I was going to be with for the rest of my life as a young adult, a young adult. So raising her, looking at her every day, looking like this man who hurt me and, wasn't an active part of her life, I resented that, and I took that out on her. And when I realized
I
what
think
that
I did
was,
the same thing.
I had to apologize to her. And ever since that, and for her, my daughter been going to therapy since she probably was like 16, 17. And for her, she never knew why our relationship was so bad. And so for me to be able to verbalize that to her, I know that was like a woosah moment for her to be able to say, wow, this is it. And from that point on, we've been best friends. Like she say, I am her best friend, because now we know the elephant's out the room, and we was able to build and cultivate this amazing friendship now. And I love it. And I'm friends with all my children. I don't know if my oldest and my youngest would say I'm their best friend. I think my youngest daughter says I'm my best friend too. My son, I'm not sure about. But me and my children have a very open and transparent relationship. And I love everything about our adult parenting now today. It's still a work in progress. Nothing's perfect. Nothing will ever be perfect, but it's a work in progress. And I love the fact that we are so close now.
Hey, it's your girl, Genice Chantel. Listen, my entrepreneurial journey has taught me one very important thing, that I am no punk. This past year, I've shed things that no longer serve me the way I feel fit, and I'm only doing things that bring me joy. Genice Chantel wax experience has been my baby for the past year, and it has grown so much over the past year. I am super excited to celebrate my 1 year in business and my new life. I look forward to seeing everything that I've envisioned for myself and my business. Get the wax, sis. I love it. I do remember having a conversation one-on-one with my oldest son, saying that my biggest fear was that he was going to end up like his father. Now, my kid's father is my first husband. And he was a heroin addict at the time when we got married. I didn't know that. But my biggest fear, that was my biggest fear. And I didn't know back then, you're supposed to speak what you want, not what you don't want. Now, don't get me wrong. My son is not a heroin addict, but he's an asshole. He's a jerk. Like, he's such a jerk to me. And when I look back over their childhood, in my mind, I know I didn't do everything perfect, but I do know that I didn't mistreat them. I didn't beat on them.
That's your perspective.
My perspective. I know I didn't beat on them.
Yeah, but mistreat them. That's
right. It's
subjective.
Subjective. It's very subjective. Yeah. But I know what I didn't do. I know I didn't cuss him out. I didn't call him out his name. I don't know why he's upset with me, but he is. But I have apologized. On more than one occasion, and have given him the opportunity to tell me what your issue is with me. And I don't know if I was hard as a parent. I was a single parent. I was raising 3 sons, and I thought it was a certain way that I had to be to make sure I stayed having control, because I didn't want my sons to run the streets to be out of control. Yes. So I felt like I had to be this certain way, but hindsight is always 20/20. And like you said, when you know better, you do better. So each of my kids has a different version of me. So we do have a therapy session set up soon. So I'm hoping that when they show up, they have agreed to show up, that they are really authentic in what they say, even if it hurts my feelings. I would rather them be truthful with how they feel so we can heal it.
Absolutely.
Then you keep being a jerk to me. And I don't really know why. Yeah. Because when I think back, I know for a fact that I gave them everything that I missed out on as a kid. But you're never going to hit all the marks as a parent. Never. Kids are always going to have a gripe with you. They're always going to have something where they think you should have handled it differently.
And you probably should have handled it differently. Right. But when you don't know, you don't know. But I can say they didn't wake up to madness. Yeah. I know that for a fact. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I gave them what I didn't have. I always wanted to be able to have my hair done. And those are things that I didn't have growing up. And that bothered my self-esteem. So I made sure they had a haircut every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I made sure that they dressed nice every day, because I didn't have that. Yeah. And it did something to my self-esteem. I know something I didn't offer my children that I definitely do now is the physical love. Like we think that we showing them love by giving them things, by taking them to get the haircut, by buying them shoes, and making sure they clean and they appropriate looking. But that physical contact and that I love you.
They mean something.
Those type hugs, not just something. Man, like I didn't get that as a child. My grandmother, she absolutely now today says I love you all the time. But back then I didn't get that, so I didn't know to give it. So that wasn't. So some of the stuff that I gave to my children that I didn't have was the financial stuff, the stability that I did not have as a child. But the affection,
we didn't know we were missing that
part exactly, and that's needed. Like that is so needed. Those I love yous. When I hit my children now, and say I love you, it's like they're coming. I really needed that. Like, Who knew? Like a simple "I love you" would make their day or that week go so much better because we know we were loved, but to hear it and to feel it every single time I see my children, we embrace now. Like, but how would their life been different if I did that as a child?
Right.
So, you never know what that one thing, that catalyst, or those couple things that our children have missed and what they're upset about. But what you have to know is that you have to be open and ready to hear it. And I'm talking to you specifically when you go to therapy.
That's gonna be
ready to hear it.
That's gonna be
and don't be ready
day.
to respond. No, just be ready to hear it.
I definitely have more patience today than I did when I was raising my kids. I didn't have any patience when I was raising my kids.
Me either.
And I was in survival mode. Mm-hmm. It was like that childhood really for me is a blur because everything was so, I was at a job that I absolutely hated, but it paid well. Mm-hmm. It allowed me to pay my mortgage, pay my car payment, and take care of my 3 sons by myself. I didn't get any child support. It allowed me to take very good care of my kids. So I had to stick it out. But it was a rat race. It was every day, routine. Like it was.
I still say to my kids, I said that. They'll tell me all the time about stuff that I've done or said. I'm like, really? That happened? Yeah, for me, it's the same. It's the blur. Like, because all you thinking about is hustling, trying to make it happen. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And it was vice versa for me. On my mom's 65th birthday, I actually apologized to her for the way I acted as a child. But my dad was in the household until I was 12. I found out when I was 12, right when those incidents happened. Around that time, I found out my dad was a heroin addict, and my mom just couldn't do it anymore. So, I watched my mom raise kids with a dad in the house, but she was a single mother. And it's like, you're married and you're single.
Been there, done that.
He was another child.
You're married and you're single, but
you got to go.
I wanted my dad. Like I wanted my dad because I wanted a dad.
I remember that. I remember. So my oldest son is the one who remembers my ex-husband the most. Of course. And I'll never forget. There was a day he was at the house and I was telling him he had to go. And he had to ask me for money. I'm not giving you no money. And my son was like, I got money. And he was getting ready to take my son's money. Like, no, you're not.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's real crazy.
That's real crazy.
And hurtful.
And very hurtful.
For my son and his father, my son ran away when he was like, 15.
I remember.
You remember that? Oh my God!
I remember.
It was I think right after Thanksgiving. It was snowing outside. It was November. It was cold as hell. And this fool, raising a young son, he had to be responsible for taking the trash out. When he went to go take the trash out, and I think his sister was like, my take the trash out, and he didn't come back. And I'm like, what? So I called my husband at the time, like, Shay said, Tay can come back. So he comes home immediately and we get in the car. We go looking for this fool. And in the snow, it's Caribbean blizzard. He is riding his damn bike to his grandmother's house. I'm going to skip some stuff because some stuff ain't matter. Because I was trying to put my hands on him. He did the beat just like, man. But the part that I want to talk about to reflect on what you were saying is the fact that we took him to his father because he wanted to be with his father. We took him to his father's house, and his father was pleading our case. He like, what you want to be here for? Don't they feed you? Don't they clothe you? Don't they treat you good? We stand outside. It's probably like 20 below. It's snow is coming. It's ready to be a blizzard, and we sit on this man's front in South Baltimore. And he pleading with him, and my son, all he kept on saying was, I want to be with you, Dad. I want to be with you. And that's where he was at for a minute. But it's crazy, how our kids, they be wanting their father, that love and that connection with their dads, although we be struggling, trying to make sure they got everything they need. And then we have these men who, for whatever reason, aren't a part of
They don't show up for them.
Don't show up for them.
That's what I wanted. I felt like that's what I needed. And I felt like I was being deprived of that. Mm-hmm. People say, if I told my dad's story, like I remember us having to go away. I remember when we had to leave the house because he called the house and said they're coming to kill you. Like my dad was a heroin addict back then. you would shoot your own stuff you sell. Like they would shoot up and they would sell it. And like my mom went through that transition, but for some reason I just wanted my dad so bad. I was daddy's little girl, and it was almost because I think it was because he would show up when I needed it. He really couldn't give me anything. He couldn't do anything, but he was just there. So people say, well, why do you take your dad's stuff so hard? I take it so hard because, I always ask for a clean father. I'm not gonna cry. I always ask for a clean father. And when he died, it was almost like I actually had a dad that was clean. I knew where he was. He was in his right mind at times before he got sick, but he was there. So when I lost him, it was like my dad left prematurely. I finally got a father, and it was snatched from me. Like he was supposed to be my protector, but it was snatched from me so prematurely. Like all my life, I just wanted my dad, and now I have him. He's clean, and now he's gone. And that was the most hurtful thing. It wasn't that he did everything for me, and my dad. What's good? He treated my mother horrible. I'm being honest about that. And she was the one that had to bury him. She treated him horrible. His family treated her. He treated her horrible. His family treated her horrible. But she had to bury him. But it was just the long of a dad to teach me things that I knew my mom couldn't teach me, to figure out things like my dad taught me the street side of me. I know I could be vicious like my dad, but it was just like to have a dad, to just finally have a man in my life that doesn't want anything but to be loved back, that doesn't need anything from me. It was just taken from me. And it's like, that's why I suffer so much with his death. But how you're raised by your father, I'm learning now that it carries over into your relationships. Of course it does. And it does. And it molds you into a person sometimes you don't even want to be. And it's like, you remember the show She's Gotta Have It?
Oh yeah.
And
I definitely was Nola Darwin. Yeah.
And everybody was around, and each person, I'm thinking about each person that embodied something. And like each person embodied a trait of my dad, and that's why I wanted to deal with that person. But it's just like, thinking about going back through childhood, it never had anything to do about what he could give, because he could come get me and take me to get a 2 for $2 from McDonald's and go buy me some Reebok buy me some Reebok princesses from the $29 shoe store, and I'm with my daddy every birthday. I don't care how high he was. We'd be right down that harbor, and he'd be like, "Here, $5 for your birthday, baby." Then next week, I just put it in my glove nut box. Next week, he'd be like, "Baby, you got $5 your father can hold." That's my baby right there. It was just the fact that he was there. It was just like, because I wanted that love. So whatever he gave me, that's what I was able to take.
I blocked out so much of my childhood. I can't even. I don't even remember good moments with my father. I was so happy after his death. About a friend of his had told me that when he got back home, he was living in Florida, that he was going to send me a picture. He was like, "Hey, me, I got a picture of you and your dad. I'm gonna send it to you." And when he sent it to me, like, I was so happy to see this picture, because I could never remember any happy times. But on that picture, like, we both cheesing.
Right.
So, yes, when my grandma was supposed to be cheesing so hard. And I just came across another picture the other day of he and I smiling that I had never seen before. Like, that's crazy. Like, I don't have memories of my childhood. Good
memory I have is my father loves oldies but goodies, and to this day, so do I. But I remember dancing with him, standing on his feet, dancing. That's the only really fond memory I have.
I had those memories, but not with my father, with my uncle. Yeah, I don't. And I wasn't a daddy's girl. I was a mommy's girl. Like, I cried myself to sleep many nights, wishing that I was with my mother. And I was in a safe place. I was with my grandparents at that time. I mean, even before then, I would cry for my mother, but I was with her. I was just crying as she came home. But once I was being raised by my grandparents, and my grandmother was an excellent grandmother. She is an excellent grandmother, and she is my best friend. But she gave me everything, but she could not be my mother. No. I cried myself to sleep many nights, wanting the love and the bond with my mother. And I didn't realize I was 25 and married, that drug addiction wasn't a choice. I always felt like my parents chose to get high versus choosing to take care of me. And it wasn't until I met my ex-husband, and he told me to research, and I'm looking up, drug addiction, and I understood that, it was a disease. But all up until then, I was very mean to my parents. I called my father by his name. My mother, I talked to her crazy because I felt like they was choosing this situation versus choosing, me.
I used to think that about my ex-husband because I didn't understand what addiction was about.
Mm-hmm.
I actually wrote him a letter. Probably my youngest son is now, he'll be 22 this year, so he might have been about 10, I guess. And I wrote him a letter. I didn't apologize because I ain't
was no need for that.
Apologize.
Right.
However, I did say I wish I had understood addiction back then, because maybe I would have, I don't know, been more supportive, even though I was supportive as much as I could be with what the information that I had.
Yeah.
But I just didn't understand that addiction is really a disease.
It is.
And that's why he was absent in the lives of our 3 sons.
Yeah.
But however,
come on, sis.
I had a very hard time forgiving him because he did get clean.
Mm-hmm. And then he loved the ones they with.
Got married, remarried, and still he did not show up for my 3 sons.
Yeah.
And I'm working on forgiving him for that, because it's for me.
That's not your shit.
Right.
You something else.
Right. Absolutely. Not my monkeys, not my circus.
Right.
But I still have not forgiven him for that, because I feel like you knew better.
Once you got clean.
Right.
Yeah.
So you should have done better.
Yeah.
Even if you were scared of them rejecting you, you still should have shown up.
And that's still probably a fear of his.
Right.
To this day.
But you grown, Negro, like own that shit.
But rejection can cause relapses too, no matter how far out you are.
And depending on how he, got himself together, what he was taught. Maybe. But again, not your shit. You gotta forgive and let go, because the way
I'm working on that.
I'm
working on that.
My daughter's father was an addict as well, but because we were friends, and that's crazy. Where, well, I guess I kind of started. No, I think because I dealt with him differently than I dealt with my parents. We were friends prior to, or not prior to. Yeah, we was friends. We went to high school together.
You don't even remember his ass.
I don't.
We telling the truth, right?
We telling the truth. All right. So, but I loved him so much that I was able to, in spite of his addiction, still, I gave him favor. I did not hold a grudge. I never held a grudge.
You did not.
I didn't. I love that man.
Yes. To the day you come through for him.
To this day, like, I don't know what that was. Like, I definitely treated him different than I did with my parents. I did not hold a grudge against that man. And I absolutely told him if he wasn't going, I did put my foot down, because he was like in and out with the addiction, trying to be a part, because he really wanted to be a part, but the addiction didn't allow him to be a part. Right, and maybe because I saw him trying, maybe that was, maybe why I gave him grace. But I definitely told him, like, listen, you can't do the in and out. That's going, fuck her up more. So if you not going to be able to be a part, then just let me and my husband do this thing, called parenting. Yes. And he respected that, and he did that. He fell back. So,
Shit, when I told my son's father that, because he had moved back to Ghana, he said, okay, I'm being consistent. He apologized for a lot of stuff. And then he fully came back in my son's life. We were planning to go, to Ghana that January. And long and behold, shit, after he apologized and started calling on the regular, it stopped again. And I'm like, what the hell? So we got a call saying, he was really sick, and then he had passed. And I'm like, well, damn. Like, he get himself together, then he gone. So it's like, but it's funny, just piggybacking on what you were saying, like how people treat you. So like the person that treated me the worst are the individuals that I gave the most forgiveness to. But the individuals that treated me the best, I had resentment against. And I don't know.
That's not my story, sis.
No, when you saying like you had resentment, but I said it was vice versa. Like when the people that treated me the worst,
got you.
That's the ones that I gave. I gave them the most grace, and the ones that didn't treat me good to me, I gave them the most resentment. And I was still trying to figure out how to balance that out. So when you said it, it was like it's vice versa for me.
I have even apologized to my children for choosing their dad, because that was my choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like, y'all deserved a dad who was going to show up for you. And that's not what I chose.
But you didn't know.
But I didn't know. But it was still my choice.
Yeah.
It wasn't their choice.
Of course not.
So, you know.
You didn't know. I didn't
Right.
know. I
Right.
didn't know
Right.
that the man that I was sleeping with and having children with was not going to be there.
But my point to them was I owned my shit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry that that's what I chose for you. Because you deserve better.
Did that work?
Apparently not.
Just was wondering.
Apparently not.
Wow.
You know, they have gotten more apologies from me than I have ever gotten. And still, you know, I feel like it's never enough. Like, it's never enough.
That's going to get better one day at a time.
One day at a time.
For sure.
Sweet Jesus. That's all I'm asking of you.
Well, guys.
Sorry, you just babbling.
We thank y'all for chiming in and listening. And I hope that our stories help you guys in your lives, wherever you are at. And
Yes.
thank you for...
Miss Celia, don't trade places with what I've been through.
Don't do it. But you are not alone.
You're
Talk
not
to
alone.
somebody.
Yes.
Thank you for chiming in to Becoming
Her.
Her, healing, evolving, and restoring.
I'm going to get it right one time.
See you next time.
Do it. God will do it. Won't he do it? God will get you through it. Won't he do it? God will do it. Won't he do it? God will get you through it. You got the job. You passed the test. Now you're sitting high, soared above the rest. Give him the praise that he deserves. Live your life. Actions match your words. Now you did it. You reached the top. You slowed down, but didn't stop. Now you did it. You reached the top. You slowed down, but didn't stop.